America's long prided itself as a country with a world-class education system. But over the last few decades, the performance of U.S. students has fallen in the ranks when compared to other industrialized countries. The 2013 International Student Assessment on the education systems of over 60 countries showed that the U.S. continues to underperform on three major focus areas: science, math, and reading. The study adds, quote, in math, American students fell to 29th place from 24th in the prior study. In science, they dropped to 22nd from 19th. And perhaps most shockingly, they fell from 10th to 20th place in reading. So what's fueling this decline in American literacy, and what can be done to reverse it? Well, this is the subject of a new book called Blueprint for a Literate Nation, a guide to improving the U.S. literacy rate. And here to break it all down, I'm joined by the co-author of the book and president of Literate Nation, Dr. Richard Long. Thank you so much for coming on, Doctor.
Nice to see you.
So I think it's really surprising to anyone who reads your book or learns the statistic: 32 million adult Americans can't read, roughly 14% of the population. How did this happen? And go over some of the other shocking findings that you've outlined in your book.
Well, in our book, we talk quite a bit about what has been done, what hasn't been done, what needs to be done to turn this around. It isn't that there are 14% of the country, the adults in the country, can't read at all. It's that they can't read well enough to participate. They can't read well enough to really read to their own kids and to engage in productive part of society.
Really tragic. And of course, the book outlines that literacy isn't necessarily the fault of students or teachers.
Correct.
Where is this issue rooted?
Well, we're not investing the way we need to. We're 50 years into the war on poverty, and we still have an incredible inequity of resources between, kids who are growing up in poverty and kids who are growing up in wealth. There's some communities where you have $19,000 being spent in Community A and $10,000 Community B, and guess what? 19,000 buys you a whole lot more, buys you more books, buys you more technology, buys you teachers who have better professional development, and so we're tragically underinvesting just across the board.
And is this underinvestment rooted in the disproportionality of certain states? I mean, I wanted to show you a map here. Minnesota, Mississippi as an example. I don't know if we could pull that up. It's just an extraordinary disconnect here. Where does this disconnect come from? Is it just a matter of investment in these states?
It is a long-term investment, and not just in the students, but it's also in the teachers. And it's looking at, trying to make a difference in having the resources there, and having the teachers have the resources to know how to teach those kids who need extra help. I mean, the kids of poverty go to school, kindergarten, first grade, 5,000 words. My kids went to school with 30,000 words. And every year that gap actually gets bigger, and the irony is we know how to change this. We know how to teach the teachers to make a difference. And in Minnesota, they're investing much more in their teacher education. They have much better policies about how to do this. And in places of high poverty, we're just not doing it. And we're sitting back and letting that happen.
And that's what's so disparaging, is you see that we can do it. And you look at countries like Finland and Sweden, these Scandinavian countries that are doing it right. What are they doing that we can learn from?
Well, that's one of the things that I think is really interesting in this, in the statistics you opened up in. The PISA study talks about these countries, and it's not just Finland, and it's not just the four tigers. It is across Europe and in parts of Latin America, where we see that people are saying this is important. We need to educate our kids because the people are important. It's the human capital that's important. That's who's going to be doing the manufacturing in the future. This is what's going to make for a productive society. We know how to do it. They're doing it, and we're holding back.
And is it just these kind of more focused one-on-one? And I guess in terms of reflecting back to America, kind of the standardization, the push for the policies of No Child Left Behind, kind of the Common Core policies, is there a disconnect between those two teaching methods as well?
The Common Core is here, and No Child Left Behind is here. No Child Left Behind is talking about accountability of the system. In the Common Core, we're talking about totally changing that and emphasizing what kids are going to need to be effective in order not to go to college, needing remedial programs. About a third of the kids right now need remedial programs. We need kids who are graduating high school at higher rates, but able to do the advanced training of advanced manufacturing. And we're not doing this into the degree that we need to be doing it.
So I know that your book also kind of outlines this blueprint.
Right,
I mean, can you kind of break it down, I guess, in a couple minutes or so,
Sure.
what the answer is? How do we do it?
Well, we need to be investing in teacher education.
Yeah.
We have teachers graduating from programs, and they're not getting the knowledge of scientifically based reading instruction, evidence-based reading instruction. We have about 30 to 40% of our kids across the board who need, you know, not extra help, but a different type of teaching instruction, whether they're in high poverty schools or language minorities, whether they're dyslexic or somehow have a disability, or they're just struggling readers. These kids need the help, and they need it to be tailored towards them. So we need the teachers to know what the science says. We need them to also know how to implement it. We need them to be able to practice it. I mean, you know, our best programs at the Ivy League level, they produce handful of teachers, and then the vast majority of new teachers come out of almost, not mills, but they're producing hundreds and thousands, and they're not getting the practice teaching. They're not getting the follow-up mentoring activities that we need in the school. They're not getting the professional development once they're in the schools.
It's kind of self-explanatory because, I mean, looking at the evolution of how schools are, class sizes just keep getting bigger and bigger, and of course it makes so much sense at face value. The smaller the class, the more kind of personalized interface that you have with a teacher, and knowing that each kid is an individual here. And stop looking at them like numbers. There is a certain amount of responsibility, of course, in the family. Is there anything that parents can do to kind of help the student become more literate?
Well, clearly parents are a big part of the solution. They're the first teacher. They're active, whether you're reading to your kid at night, calming them down and getting them ready for bed, or if you're taking them to the food store and talking to them about what you were talking about before, what's on the label, what's there, breaking it down, showing them that literacy is important. In fact, even you're reading a book in front of them and talking about it, expanding the vocabulary, talking, interacting. That's what makes it rich. But also one other thing, getting with the school. Don't accept the excuses. Don't say, oh, it will be better, it will be better. Ask the pointed questions. As I said, we know how to solve almost all these problems. The question is, do we have the political will?
Do we have the political will? Turn off the TV, pick up a book, read it with your kid. Thank you so much. Dr. Richard Long, President, Literate Nation, and co-author of Blueprint for a Literate Nation. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Abby.
That's our show, you guys. Join me again tomorrow when I break the set all over again.